And at the end of the cleaning session, we say, is there anything you change with your vacuum cleaner? And they say, no, it works great. And our observations have to go into, well, hold on a minute. We saw that you turned over the vacuum, you ripped the hair off, you almost cut your finger. And we found that consumers will actually apologize for the lack of ability of their product. They just tend to live with and manage the problems of their existing products. They're not thinking, could a product be done that didn't wrap hair? But that becomes an inspiration for us that we're then able, it's one thing to be able to identify the problem. It's another thing to be able to solve the problem.
I'm Patrick J. McGinnis, and I coined the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out, and it's why some people end up following the crowd when they should be blazing a trail of their own. But if you want to achieve greatness in business and life, you've got to break free. Come on, I'll show you how. This is FOMO Sapiens, where we explore how entrepreneurial thinkers find the inspiration and the courage to build exceptional lives. Welcome back to FOMO Sapiens, the show for bold thinkers who want to turn their FOMO into focus. I'm your host, Patrick J. McGinnis. Today, we are joined by Mark Barrocas, the CEO of SharkNinja, the company behind household names like Shark and Ninja. Since 2008, Mark has helped transform SharkNinja from a small appliance player into a multi-billion-dollar global innovation powerhouse. And he's also the architect of the company's outrageously extraordinary culture, which fuels bold decision-making, agility, and nonstop product launches. And by the way, this is one of these, go in your kitchen or go around your house and you're going to see these products. Maybe you didn't even realize, but check out your vacuum brand, check your LED face mask, check your toaster. I have all three of those. And you're going to realize that these are things that you have in your home. So it's always amazing to talk to leaders of companies that are literally transforming categories that we don't think about every day. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
It's my pleasure. All right. So we have a lot to talk about, but I want to dive in with a little bit of the background. How did you end up at SharkNinja? And when you got there, what was it like?
Yeah, well, what it was like was we were a small company based just outside of Boston. We had about 40 people in the office. So if you wanted to get everyone aligned, you got everyone in a conference room, and in 10 minutes, kind of the company was aligned. And, we only had the Shark brand at the time. The company was called EuroPro. And for the most part, there were two main products that we sold. One was called the Shark Steam Mop. You would clean your floors with steam. And the other one was called the Shark Sweeper. And I joined my best friend at the time, a gentleman named Mark Rosenzweig, who founded the company. And we really kind of repositioned the business around how do we solve consumer problems that we can talk more about. And that was back in 2008.
Wow. And an interesting time to join because obviously the world was falling apart, financial crisis going on. I imagine consumers were a little bit, reluctant to part with their money. You come in, and then ever since then, obviously the company is much larger now and offers many more products. You talk about the problem solving culture, which is theoretically every business should start from that first principle. But, a lot of times you see that they don't. They're bringing out products that don't find a market because they're not actually thinking about the consumer first. What does that mean? What does it mean in practice? How do you actually figure out the problem of the consumer in order to meet it?
Well, listen, it'd be really easy if the consumer would just come and knock on our door and say, this is my problem. Right. So let's start off with that we see problems that others don't. And that needs to come from lots of different places. I mean, we're scouring consumer data. We're in consumer homes. We're looking at things that consumers are doing outside of their home that they're not doing inside of their home. We're looking at how things are done in commercial environments like restaurants or office buildings or things like that. And we're starting to create hypotheses, and we're starting to kind of tease out what might be a consumer problem. And those consumer problems could be as varied as watching a consumer vacuum, turning over a vacuum cleaner, having them take a knife or a scissor, cut the hair off the brush roll, pull the hair out, throw it in the garbage. They continue cleaning. And at the end of the cleaning session, we say, is there anything you change with your vacuum cleaner? And they say, no, it works great. And our observations have to go into, well, hold on a minute. We saw that you turned over the vacuum, you ripped the hair off, you almost cut your finger. And we found that consumers will actually apologize for the lack of ability of their product. I have 2 dogs. My daughter has long hair. It always gets caught in the brush roll. They just tend to live with and manage the problems of their existing products. They're not thinking, could a product be done that didn't wrap hair? But that becomes an inspiration for us that we're then able, it's one thing to be able to identify the problem. It's another thing to be able to solve the problem. And today we have 1,300 engineers around the world that we take a problem like, why does your vacuum wrap hair around the brush roll? And we go back to those engineers and say, hey, can we solve that problem? Is that something we can do where the vacuum cleaner no longer wraps hair? And so it's this ability to be able to tease out and see problems that others don't, and then solve problems that others can't. And as we go through the process, you ultimately find out that sometimes there's a problem that you thought was a problem, and that, by doing a whole lot of consumer testing, you realize that the consumer didn't really think it was so big of a problem. Or you ultimately give it to the engineers and you realize, hey, that's a really hard problem to solve, or maybe it'll take too much money, or we don't have the technology to be able to do it. So it's when these two things come together where you've got a problem and then you've got the technological ability to be able to solve that problem and to do it at what we call kind of this 3-pillar quotient of Shark Ninja. We need market-leading performance, we need high-quality products, and we need to deliver them to the consumer at an extraordinary value. And when you bring all those pieces together, you get something that really excites the consumer.
That's really cool. And I'm thinking about this. So you have this toaster that becomes a toaster oven, which is like, by the way, it's fun to just show people, like if you have somebody over the house, you're like, look at this, boom. And you take the toaster and you pivot it down so that it's flat, and then you can use it to as a toaster oven, right? And so you don't need to have a toaster and a toaster oven. You can just have the one product. So it's kind of it's delightful, by the way. It's kind of the thing that makes cooking more fun in a sense. But what's interesting about that, as I think about it in your context, is you also have to be able to explain to the customer why they want to have it, tell them the story about how it makes their life better, and then also do that in a way that isn't overwhelming. Because how many times do you buy a product that has all these features that you never use, right? And so there's a big part of this. It's telling the story that has to be baked in from the beginning. So how do you make sure that the story aligns with the product?
Well, let's start with, if your business is about product developing and you're product developing towards a price, there's not going to be a really compelling story, that can tell around the price. Or if you're product developing because a retailer buyer told you there's an opportunity in this category, that's not really too compelling of a story to be able to tell the consumer. Or if you've developed a product based on just your, idea of something that you've come up with that doesn't really have any consumer connection to it. Again, it's really hard to tell that story. What I think we're doing is we're telling authentic stories because it genuinely starts with a real problem. And then there's a journey to solve that problem. So let's take your example of the toaster oven that flips down. We started off and we said, look, the consumer has limited counter space. That's a fact. Okay. Now, how does the consumer get the most out of that counter space? And so we looked at it and we said, well, there's a toaster functionality that delivers great toast to the consumer and does it fast. Yep. But then there's an oven functionality that does a great job of heating things or cooking things, but not a great job of toasting. So what if you can combine something that does a great job as a toaster, a great job as an oven, limits the counter space that it does it on, is either able to work in the vertical position or the horizontal position, depending upon when you need it. And when you don't need it, you just flip it up and you kind of tuck it away on your countertop and it doesn't take much space. There's a story behind that. There's a journey. There's a, how did we get to that point? I mean, why did we develop a product with all of these different features? As you start telling that story, and I will tell you, Patrick, I mean, our history comes from infomercials, right? Back in 2008, our advertising was done on 28-minute and 30-second infomercials.
Oh my God.
We would go on TV for 30 minutes, and my partner would be on TV and he would be demonstrating. And we would literally, in advance, come up with the demonstration of those infomercials. We'd be in his living room or my living room, and we'd put sand on the floor, and we'd look at our vacuum, and we look at a competitor's vacuum, and we'd say, how do we come up with a demonstration that's able to articulate to the consumer what the benefits are of the product and how it's going to come to life for you in your home? Fast forward to today, while that might not be done on a 30-minute infomercial, it's got to be done on a 12-second TikTok or an Instagram post or something on YouTube. But again, it starts with, do you have a story to tell? And I think that all of our products have a story to tell because it comes from an authentic place of what's the consumer problem to solve. But then I'd love to say that it starts with the problem and it ends with that. It's the meandering journey of what it takes. We might go through 30 iterations of that product before we ultimately get to something that we think is really going to satisfy the end consumer.
FOMO.
See, what I love about, there's so much good in this because I don't care what you're doing for a business. If you use this mindset of figuring out in a different way, being innovative, coming up with a product that solves a problem that actually exists, and then figuring out how to communicate that. And also doing it in a way that is fun, because it is fun to take the toaster oven and flip it. Like, I like to show that off to people. I mean, maybe I should find some other things to talk about, but I enjoy that. And people smile and they want one for their house. So like, you're creating that. And it's like, I think about those infomercials. That's what they did. I mean, for people who don't remember or weren't around, like, there was a time when you on a Saturday afternoon, you would watch this crap for like 28 minutes. And like, there was a studio audience that would like clap. It was weird, but somehow it was like ASMR a little bit. And people would watch this stuff. And then they became like cultural touch points. Nowadays, as you know, like you have to get people straight away. And one of the things that you have done as a company, and I want to talk about this, is you guys do find ways to make things go viral. Like, I have this LED mask that you guys make. And I posted it on Instagram and I got tons of people writing me back, either like, does it work? Or I want one, or that's crazy, or whatever. And so there is something about these products that is fun and that has some virality. So give us an example of like one of those products that's been able to go viral and like why it did. And like, what was your role in driving virality?
Yeah. Okay. So Patrick, you brought up a whole bunch of different topics there, and I want to touch on one of them.
I know. I tend to do that. Go ahead. You answer the question.
I want to touch on one of them because I think it's interesting. The thing about infomercials is when we would launch an infomercial, and I'm going to go back to 2009, we would launch an infomercial at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning on USA Network. And it was the first time it was going to come out, and we were going to present this product to a consumer. And that would run from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And Patrick, by 11 a.m., based on the number of calls that we got for orders, we knew by 11 a.m. whether that show or that product was going to be a success or not.
Wow.
We knew that quickly, okay, in terms of the feedback from the consumer. So in the DNA of our business is not, let's go throw a whole bunch of 30-second commercials out, because you always get asked the question, hey, you ran a lot of advertising, but did it really have any impact? Or what portion of the advertising had impact? We came from a place where we had no money. Okay, that's why we ran infomercials. I mean, we couldn't run 30-second commercials. Every time we ran an infomercial, we needed to generate sales off of that infomercial to be able to pay for the advertising. But it built in our DNA this idea of what's the feedback and what's the response that we're getting immediately from the consumer? Are we connecting with them and are they resonating? Or are we connecting with them and they're just flicking the channel to the next channel? Now, on the point you brought up of a viral product, and I'll give you a great example. We launched a product a number of years ago called the Ninja Creamy. It was an at-home ice cream maker.
Okay.
And I will tell you that we developed the product during COVID. It was in the beginning of COVID. And I remember being in a board meeting with our board in the middle of COVID. And I was telling them about this great product that we're developing that's going to change the way consumers make ice cream at home. And there was a board member that was challenging me and saying, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Why aren't you focused on UV or sanitization or killing viruses or something like that? And I said to them, because people love ice cream. Let's start with that. Okay. Doesn't matter where you are. People love ice cream. And the idea behind Creamy came from, we started seeing the number of consumers that were having dietary restrictions, kids with allergies. Okay. They couldn't buy store-bought ice cream because there was a nut allergy or some other sort of allergy. People that were lactose intolerant and they needed to have it made with coconut milk or oat milk or this whole way of customizing ice cream. Patrick, at the time, the entire at-home ice cream market in the United States was $40 million.
Wow.
And I remember a major retailer telling us, well, if you go into this market, and even if you take 50% of the market, you're only going to have a $20 million business. I mean, why would you even be interested in this? And the idea is because we think at Shark Ninja, we can enlarge the size of the market. We can get so many more people excited by it that they'll come in to a market that they would say to themselves, hey, I didn't think I needed an ice cream maker at home, but based on what Ninja made, this can really, change the environment for my family. We went out on social media. We talked about all the recipes. We created all of this viral content. People started getting excited and sharing recipes about what they could make and what they can do with it. And about a year into the product was doing well, but a year into the product, a bunch of consumers on their own just said, hey, what if I didn't take my protein shake after I work out and drink it? What if I froze it and then I turned it into ice cream? And consumers created protein ice cream. Shark Ninja didn't create protein ice cream. Consumers created it. And it started this whole viral trend of that instead of drinking your smoothie, you could eat a pint of ice cream that had 270 calories, all the ingredients that because you're making it fresh yourself. It's got 30 or 40 grams of protein in it. And it kind of started this whole exciting movement around protein ice cream at home. But what it shows, Patrick, is that we're putting products out and then we're letting consumers hack the product.
Yeah.
Consumers love to hack the product. And in a world of social media where they can hack the product and they can make it their own, they're then willing to go on social media and show millions of their closest friends the best recipes that they've done, the best ideas they've come up with, the best ways of using the product. And so they become our ambassadors. And if I go back to 2009, when we sat and we said, we're going to grow our business one 5-star review at a time, and there were people that said, 5-star review, who's going to write a 5-star review about your products? You make steam mops or sweepers. I mean, no one's going to write a 5-star review. Well, you go on social media today, or you go on Amazon or Walmart.com or Target.com or any of these, you'll see how many consumers engage with our products and then really feel compelled to kind of make it their own.
That's so interesting because you're getting, all marketing is FOMO, right? You're getting the consumer to do the heavy lifting. But more than that, when the consumer does it, it's way more credible than any other sort of source of marketing because it's, people trust their peers. I'm curious, like with the LED face mask, you have placed lights on the front, which make it look cool on social media. Do you guys, as you develop products, do you sort of bake into the design like elements that make them more fun and exciting to share in social media channels?
When we develop a product, we have 3 things that we think about. Okay, the first one is called threshold of acceptability. Okay, what is a consumer going to be acceptable with? Let's take as an example the noise on a vacuum cleaner. Okay, it can't be above a certain point that's going to be annoying or irritating, but it also can't be super quiet because the consumer is not willing to pay $800, $900, $1,000 for a super quiet vacuum cleaner. So there's like inherent challenges.
Okay.
So you're trying to find this like threshold of acceptability. Okay. Consumers might not love it, but they're not going to hate it and ding you for it. The next level is threshold of excellence. Threshold of excellence is something that's going to get the consumer really excited. I used a Shark vacuum for the first time. I can't believe what it picked up in the dust cup. People get excited by seeing the dust cup of their vacuum. It feels satisfying that they were able to pick up so much stuff and say, wow, I can't believe the old vacuum that I have didn't pick up, a third, a quarter of what this Shark vacuum's able to do. Another example of that is I put ice into my Ninja blender. I filled it all to the top, and that thing pulverized the ice into snow, and that's incredible. And I'm excited by it. That's threshold of excellence. Somebody's going to write a review about that. Over the last 4 years, a new level has developed, and that's threshold of viral. And It's thinking about the products through the lens of, if you see it on social media, and in the example that you gave, when the cryo pads are lit up on your face and the face mask is working, we don't want the consumer on social media just to see a blank plastic mask on the outside. So we added some LED lights around it to kind of signify that the product is in use. Little cues like that kind of tell the consumer the product's working. Okay. It's there's some feedback element to it. And that all plays into this kind of threshold of viral aspect.
That's really smart, by the way. And it also makes you look less like Michael Myers, which is good because it would be scary. But I will say what I like about that answer is you can tell, like, this is a CEO answer. Like, a lot of the people we have on our show are entrepreneurs building companies. And they have a reason, but they do things for reasons. They have structure, but you have done a very clean, you have 3 reasons you do this and they all make sense. And I think, like, just listen, folks, if as you're listening to this, like, this is what I would say is like very effective communication about like why this business exists and what you're trying to do. And we don't hear it enough from CEOs. So like, I appreciate that, because like I'll walk away with this and I can tell you like the 3 things that you're doing when you develop a product. It's very clear, right? So that's good stuff. And it makes sense to me. I want to talk about, obviously we've talked about a bunch of successes today, but not everything's going to hit. And I'd love to hear a story from you about something that just did not just hit the wall and fell to the floor, and like what you learned, like what went wrong on that occasion.
Yeah. Well, let me start by saying, like, we're failing every day. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, we bring 25 new products to market every year, and we're failing every day. And, that's part of the DNA of the business. I mean, how do you get something amazing? Ultimately, like, you're going to fail. Like, you're going to hit a roadblock, and the question is, how do you react to that? Do you throw the baby out with the bathwater, or do you look for the nuggets that really worked and then kind of reinvent it and build on it? And I'll give you an example, and I'll go back to 2009. My partner and I at the time were really excited about our vacuum business. It was starting to grow. And we developed the product, and it was a hand vacuum that fit on a pole, and it was able to clean either your floors or above the floor. Prior to that, you either bought a vacuum cleaner that was designed to clean your floor, or you bought a vacuum cleaner that was a hand vacuum that had very little suction, very little performance, and that cleaned above your floor. And you kind of went around and did it.
Okay.
What this did is this hand vacuum had incredible amounts of suction. Okay. It was a marvel. And he and I became absolutely enamored with this thing. And we would pile up on a desk, a pile of sand or a pile of flour. And we would take this hand vacuum, and just a tiny bit of that sand or flour would have rendered another hand vacuum useless, because the filter would have immediately gotten clogged. Wow. And this thing picked the entire thing up, and we were so excited by it. And so we went to market with it, and the hand vacuum kind of attached onto this pole, and then the pole allowed you to be able to clean the floor, and you had a floor attachment.
Yeah. It
was called the Shark MultiVac. I'm sure you could probably still find it on social media. We put the product out, And instantly we realized consumers hated this thing. It was like an erector set. Okay. It was terrible. I mean, but we got, clouded by the fact that the cleaning performance was so great. There's people that couldn't even hook the thing back on.
God.
It was wobbling and it was falling over, all of these things. And by the time we realized that this was bad, and we knew instantly that it was bad, we had made a ton of units of this product, and we were a small company at the time. We immediately went to all of our retailers before our retailers even knew that this thing was bad. And we said, we're going to discount the price. We think that the better price for the product is not $199. We're going to sell it for $149. What we knew was we had to liquidate this thing out as quickly as possible. We shut down the production. We limited it as much as we could. And we said, okay, this is a major loss. And what do we learn from it? Not like how do we throw it away and move on, but what do we learn from it? A lot of what you heard from me about TOA and TOE and TOV comes from your failures, comes from like, where were the blind spots? Where were you developing a product for you and not for the consumer? And so we learned a tremendous amount about that, and it allowed us to become a much, much better product development company. We no longer develop groupthink. We need to have, discerning personalities and conflict. I mean, one of the big traits of Shark Ninja is this idea of challenged and be challenged. We want to challenge, but we also want to make sure that we're also being challenged to make sure that we're getting to the right end result. The end result of that, Patrick, is we said in most companies, you would say, never talk about the MultiVac again, throw it away. It's gone from our brain. But there was a nugget of amazingness in it. And the nugget of amazingness was the ability to be able to clean above the floors and on the floor. And a year later, we came out with a product called the Shark Navigator Liftaway. Shark Navigator Liftaway. By 2014, we became the #1 vacuum brand in the United States. The Shark Liftaway family is still the #1 selling vacuums in the United States, wow. This product. And all of that came from the biggest failure that we ever had in our company's history, the Shark MultiVac. But we learned from it. We found out what was great about it. We perfected it. And when we came out with the Liftaway, and this goes back to the example I gave you on the infomercial at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning on USA Network, I remember to this day, we put that infomercial out, and by 11 o'clock, Mark and I knew we had a home run on our hands. We had an absolute home run on our hands. And so there's a great example of like, how do you, failure is a temporary condition. How do you kind of learn from those things and make sure that as you move forward, you don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you really try to pick out the nuggets that worked well.
FOMO.
What I like about the story is that you guys moved quickly. So many people think they can bail the water out of the Titanic when things aren't going right. I was on the board of a company once. It was in Turkey. We were doing a new retail concept. It was kind of like it was like Aldi, but for health and wellness, like, hard discount, whatever. So our founder was a very inflexible guy who had a lot of success. We opened this company. We raised $50 million for it. And what happens is that the consumer did not understand the concept. I remember standing outside the damn store. People would walk up to the store, look in the window, like look confused and keep walking. And we knew that. So I went to the board meeting. I'm like, people don't get this business. He was like, no, we will just keep going. They will figure it out. Like, we don't need to change anything. Of course, this company went bankrupt, right? Now, that's a lot of things went wrong in that story. But the biggest problem was an unwillingness to trust the consumer as being correct when things aren't working. And the idea that somehow the consumer is going to get smart to your crappy idea, I won't say the S word, is really arrogant. And that's where the Crystal Pepsis get kept on the shelves for 3 years when they should have been completely thrown into the dustbin or whatever.
Patrick, to that point, I mean, we use a term in the company, which is we reserve the right to get smarter. You made a decision. You had an assumption. The data proves out that your assumption is wrong. Pivot. change. I mean, I think kind of holding on to something, is ego driven. Okay. It's not, in 2009, I wrote a mission statement for the company, which is positively impacting people's lives every day in every home around the world. If you walk into any office of Shark Ninja around the world, you will see that as the first thing right in front of the door, positively impacting people's lives every day in every home around the world. If you stay true to that's your beacon, when you see things that are not resonating or not connecting, the answer is very simple. Yeah. Change it, evolve it, pivot it, do something. Because the question is, are you in business for yourself or are you in business for some higher good? And that higher good is we want to positively impact people's lives. If no one's going to buy our products and if no one's going to resonate with those products, how can we fulfill our mission?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. All right, so we're going to move on now to the FOMO 4, which is 4 quick questions for quick answers. Are you ready for this?
Go ahead.
All right. These aren't easy, though. Number 1, what's the decision you're proud of that you made fast?
I would say COVID. In the beginning of COVID, when everyone shut down and everyone stopped and everyone hunkered down, we said, the vision of the business is product innovation. We'll burn the furniture first before we're going to cut product innovation. And I think our ability to just keep that going through COVID had us come out of COVID stronger than ever and not having to restart. When you stop product innovation, it's very hard to get it kickstarted again. And I think that conviction at that moment was really the right decision.
That's a very good answer. You're fast. It's good. Like you got that right away. All right. Number 2, best advice you've ever received.
Best advice I ever received was from my grandfather. I mean, there's no shortcuts. There's no get rich quick schemes. Yeah. You just got to work every day. And you just to build something that is sustainable and long-term and successful. And I saw him work into his 70s. And he just got up and he worked every day. And that's what has inspired me.
That's cool. All right. Number 3, what's your favorite use case for ChatGPT?
Asking ChatGPT what do consumers dislike about a particular product or a particular category.
That's great. That's really good. And do you feel like it's accurate?
I really do. I mean, and I'll give you a little quick example. We were developing a new technology in air purification. And we had this hypothesis, and the hypothesis was that people bought an air purifier, but within 3 months, the filter clogged, and you had to go buy another filter. And what you were really buying when you bought an air purifier is you were committing to $300 worth of filters over the course of the next couple of years. And most of the time, you didn't even know if the filter was clogged because it didn't tell you. And so it might be sitting in the corner of your room, and who knows if it's even working or not. We developed a concept called the Shark Never Change Air Purifier. You never change the air purifier for the 5-year life of the product. If you go and you chat GPT, what's the number one thing the consumers dislike about an air purifier? Filter changing.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. That's really smart. Everybody should be doing this for their businesses, but that's a really good use case. Final one. What's the boldest consumer problem you still want Shark Ninja to solve now that you've solved the filter problem?
Patrick, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I think that first off, I would hope that our best solves are in front of us and they're not behind us. I think we're solving bigger and bolder problems. We're delighting more consumers around the world. I think we want to earn the right to keep playing the game. And to keep playing the game, is about developing more great products, getting consumers to trust us when we go into a new category. We just launched a product called the Ninja Fireside. It's an outdoor heater fire pit combination.
Cool.
Now, you might say, well, Ninja, hold on. The consumer might say, well, I own a Ninja air fryer, or I own a Ninja slushy, or a Ninja creamy. But now Ninja's come out with an outdoor heater fire pit that uses propane. But when the consumer says, hey, I've had a great experience with that other Ninja product, I'm willing to try Ninja when I'm coming out into this category that I might not know the brand in that category, but it's building that goodwill so that when we come out with the next problem that we solved, the consumer's willing to try it.
Okay. Everybody look for that fire pit. What's it called?
The Ninja Fireside.
Okay. Nice. I like that. Sounds cozy. All right. Last question. For people that want to learn more about you, connect with you in some way or with Shark Ninja, where should they go?
So as of next week, we're launching a new platform, SharkNinja.com. Today, if you would have to go to Ninja Kitchen if you were interested in Ninja, or Shark Beauty if you were interested in our beauty business, or Shark Home if you're interested in our home business. For the first time, we're bringing all of those sites together, and we're launching one platform that will have all 37 product categories that Shark Ninja sells and all the information and exciting things about our products. So that's going to be the destination.
All right, so everybody go check that out. It's up now because we're going to run this a little after a week. So go check it out. I have been on your website and seen that it was split into two. So as somebody who has perused it, I'm going to go check that out too, because it's cumbersome. So bringing it all together under one roof makes a ton of sense. Now, everybody, if you like today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share FOMO Sapiens with your friends. Go check out SharkNinja.com. Check out the stuff. Check out the toaster oven and I'm telling you, people will want to have toast with you. And I want to thank you so much, Mark, for being here. Mark Barrocas, CEO of Shark Ninja. A lot of wisdom. Thanks for being here. And remember, everybody, FOMO is real, but the power to master it is yours. FOMO Sapiens is recorded in New York City and can be found on YouTube at FOMO Sapiens or on your favorite podcast network. Theme music is by Mike McGinnis, editing and post-production is by Josh Elstro, and the show is produced by Matt Curtis and me. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and share it with your friends. And as always, you can find more about the show and me at FOMOSapiens.com and PatrickMcGinnis.com.